Constantinople, 548 AD. The air in the imperial palace hangs heavy, thick with incense and the scent of death. Empress Theodora, the most powerful woman in the world, lies dying. Draped in imperial purple, she is a fragile shadow of the force that remade an empire. Beside her, the Emperor Justinian, ruler of Byzantium, weeps uncontrollably. But as courtiers murmur prayers, the servants notice things. Strange marks on her skin, almost like ritual scars hidden beneath the silks. They find peculiar items tucked away in hidden compartments of her bedchamber, and they know that even in death, Theodora's secrets have the power to shatter the very foundations of the empire. Who was this woman? History gives us three versions. The official records paint her as a saint, a pious and charitable empress. The whispers of the court describe a ruthless political mastermind, a schemer who played the game of power better than any man. But the servants, the spies, the forgotten people in the shadows, they knew the third Theodora, the dangerous seductress, the bearkeeper's daughter who clawed her way from the gutter to the throne. This is the story of how she did it, through power, secrets, and blood. Our story begins around the year 500 in the grimy underbelly of Constantinople. Theodora was born into the lowest rung of society. Her father was a bearkeeper at the Hippodrome, the city's colossal chariot racing stadium. His job was to tend to the animals used in the pre-race entertainment. But when Theodora was just 5 years old, he died from a festering infection, leaving his family destitute. Her mother, desperate and with no other options, did something unthinkable. She dressed Theodora and her two sisters in simple tunics, placed garlands on their heads, and paraded them before the crowd at the Hippodrome. She was begging the powerful racing factions, the Blues and the Greens, for protection, for a job, any job. The Greens, the faction her father had served, callously rejected them. In a moment of pity, the Blues took them in. This public humiliation, this rejection, would sear itself into Theodora's memory, fueling a lifelong thirst for vengeance. By the time she was 12, Theodora had entered the only profession open to a girl of her station: the theater. In Constantinople, the word actress was legally synonymous with prostitute. On stage, she became known for her scandalous and erotic performances, including one infamous act involving geese that was whispered about for years. She was a spectacle, a public commodity. But in this world of degradation, Theodora learned her most valuable lesson. She learned to read men. She saw their weaknesses, their hidden desires, their secret shames. She realized her body was not just a source of shame, but a weapon, a form of currency. She began to listen, to memorize the drunken confessions and careless whispers of the powerful men who paid for her time. Sex became her primary tool for intelligence gathering. Soon, her sharp intellect and wit set her apart. She was more than just a pretty face. She could converse, debate, and charm with the best of them. She graduated from the common theater to the exclusive private parties of the elite. She became the confidant and mistress to senators, generals, and bishops. And with every encounter, her collection of secrets grew. She gathered blackmail material like a queen collecting jewels, letters detailing adulterous affairs, records of bribes, confessions of political conspiracies. Theodora understood a fundamental truth of the empire: beauty fades, but influence, and the secrets that create it, is eternal. Her journey took a sharp turn when she became the mistress of a man named Hesebulus, the governor of a province in North Africa. She traveled with him for years, but their relationship soured, and he abandoned her, penniless, in the city of Alexandria. This could have been the end of her story. She could have returned to the brothels. But Theodora did something no one expected. She turned to religion. In Alexandria, a hub of theological debate, she immersed herself in the study of Christian doctrine, aligning with a politically influential branch known as monophysitism. She began to craft a new persona, a penitent, devout woman who had seen the error of her ways. She was no longer Theodora the actress, but Theodora, the repentant soul. Around 522 AD, she returned to Constantinople. Officially, she supported herself as a wool spinner, a common euphemism for a discreet, high-class courtesan. She cultivated a public image of piety while privately maintaining her network of influential lovers. She was playing a dual role, gaining a foothold in both the religious and political spheres. And she had a new, impossibly audacious goal: to marry into the imperial family itself. Then she met him, Justinian, the nephew and heir to the reigning emperor. He was a scholar, a deeply religious and celibate man who had spent his life buried in books and law. Somehow, Theodora orchestrated a meeting, and he became utterly obsessed. The court historian Procopius, who despised her, claimed she used pharmakia, a word that could mean charms, drugs, or simply irresistible seduction, to ensnare him. Their relationship was the biggest scandal in Constantinople. The law was clear: a man of senatorial rank could not marry an actress. The Empress Euphemia, Justinian's aunt and a powerful figure in her own right, was furious and blocked their union at every turn. But in 524, fate intervened. Euphemia died. Justinian, now free from her influence, wasted no time. He rewrote the law, creating a new clause that allowed shufin, reformed actresses who had abandoned their former lives, to marry into the highest echelons of society. In 525, in a stunning ceremony at the Hagia Sophia, Justinian and Theodora were married. The bearkeeper's daughter had bent the law, religion, and social order of the Roman Empire to her will. Just 2 years later, Justinian ascended to the throne. Theodora was crowned alongside him, not as a mere consort, but as Augusta, his equal in power. She was a co-ruler. She received her own ambassadors, issued her own decrees, and maintained her own court, complete with her own guards and spies. She had reached the summit, but old habits die hard. The Empress had a secret life. She had the palace architecture modified, adding secret passages, soundproof rooms, and hidden entrances. It was whispered that her liaisons continued, but now her partners were generals, foreign dignitaries, and high-ranking clergy. Those who pleased her were rewarded with promotions and wealth. Those who dared to reject her simply vanished. Her private chambers, some of which have been archaeologically verified, were a world of their own, complete with heated pools and exotic devices designed for pleasure. Her ultimate test came in 532 during the Nika Riots. A massive uprising, sparked by the chariot factions, engulfed Constantinople. The city was burning. Justinian's regime was on the verge of collapse. His generals advised him to flee. As they prepared to abandon the capital, Theodora stood before them. In a moment that would become legend, she declared, "Royalty is a fine burial shroud." The purple of the imperial robes, she argued, was a fitting color in which to die. Her courage, or her cold calculation, shamed Justinian into staying. Theodora seized control. She used her old connections to the Blue faction, bribing them to split from the rebels. Then she gave the order. Her generals, Belisarius and Mundus, trapped the remaining rioters, tens of thousands of them, in the Hippodrome, the very place her story began. In a matter of hours, over 30,000 people were massacred. Under the cover of restoring order, Theodora systematically eliminated every political enemy and critic who had ever crossed her. Revenge, disguised as justice, was finally hers. In the aftermath, Theodora became untouchable. She used the confiscated wealth of her dead enemies to rebuild the city on a grander scale than ever before, funding the construction of the magnificent Hagia Sophia. She passed sweeping reforms protecting women, creating shelters for ex-prostitutes, and enacting some of the world's first anti-trafficking laws. Of course, these laws also conveniently gave her state control over the sex trade, eliminating any potential rivals. To cement her power, she built the most sophisticated intelligence network the empire had ever seen. Her spies were everywhere, eunuchs in the bureaucracy, servants in noble houses, and her former colleagues, courtesans and prostitutes, placed as informants in the bedrooms of the powerful. She kept meticulous records of every scandal, every bribe, every whispered sin, storing them in hidden rooms within the palace. She no longer needed seduction to get what she wanted. She wielded secrets like a sword, destroying her opponents with the truth of their own hypocrisy. In 548, after 21 years as Empress, Theodora died, likely from cancer. Justinian was left utterly devastated. He never remarried and ordered her chambers to be preserved exactly as she left them, a private shrine to his lost love. But Theodora's influence lingered. Her intelligence network continued to operate, a ghost in the machine of the empire. In a final, ironic twist, the church she had so expertly manipulated canonized her. The official histories were rewritten, erasing the scandals and transforming the actress, courtesan, and spymaster into Saint Theodora. Her legacy is a paradox. She was a champion of women and a ruthless killer, a pious Christian and a master of seduction. She was the most powerful woman in Byzantine history and the most feared. From the streets to the throne, she played the game and won, leaving behind a story so incredible it could only be true. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of one of history's most fascinating women, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the past. We'll see you next time.